like to call this board meeting to order. Would please rise and let's have a moment of silent reflection for the victims of the Madrid bombing. Thank you. Christine, would you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 9th. Agenda review, Mr. CEO.
Mr. Chairman, there are three changes I need to bring your attention to. One is item number 21, I believe has been modified. Item 25 has also been modified by removing recommendation number 4. And I am suggesting that we pull item 13 off of the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda for discussion.
Okay. And the modifications to 21 and 25, we have documentation for those?
Correct.
Any other agenda review requests by board members?
Yes, I would like to pull item 21 for discussion.
21?
Yes.
That's the modification and now pulled for discussion. Okay. Any others? You guys want? Right? Okay. We have... So we are ready to handle the consent agenda minus items 13 and 21. Moved and seconded for the consent agenda with items 13, and that's pulled for a week or just pulled for discussion? Okay, all right, pulled for discussion, all right. Okay, and let us go ahead and, well, let's go ahead and handle 13 and 21. Is Public Works staff here? Great. Great. Item 13 first. Channel Islands Harbor request to assist with the fundraising for the Tullamore.
Yes, good morning. The Channel Islands Harbor Foundation, I think everyone is aware, has a joint agreement with the SOPI, School of the Pacific Islands, which owns the Tullamore. Larry Jans, I'm actually expecting any minute in case you have any questions for him later. The joint agreement is to each provide 50% of the funding necessary to hire a fundraiser, which in this case we believe is selected to be the Netzel Group. Now we have a contract in development. And the purpose is to bring the Tullamore from Long Beach to Ventura County to operate and offer the same K-12 programming for young people in Ventura County that it's been offering in LA County now for the last few years. The idea is that if the fundraising campaign is successful, this money will be reimbursed to the foundation through the fundraising campaign. Of course, if it's not, then the money would be expended.
Okay. Are there questions on this item?
Does Los Angeles pay to assist the program there?
No. In fact, Mr. Jans approached us a few years ago with the idea of bringing the Tullamore here. It was coming from Hawaii. And at the time we said, we don't really have the money. We've got other projects. We need to see that you can operate on your own. And the program has been operating now in Long Beach, and it is self-sufficient. It breaks even. The only cost that's being experienced is to pay off the ship and bring it up to Ventura County. So the only reason there's a contribution at this point, over the long term, they'll just be renting a slip. There won't be any ongoing commitment. We've made that very clear.
I have to say that in these budget times, I have a real problem helping someone buy a tall ship. And because of that, maybe in lush times I could consider it, and that would just be to consider it, but particularly now, that kind of funding was at $60,000.
Right, that's right.
That to me is, a staff person that we will lose because we're giving it to help someone buy a ship for this. So I have a real hard time supporting this.
Yeah. Our concern is that over the long haul, we'll lose more if we don't generate some foot traffic, and particularly among young people who then bring their parents and other people along with them back to the location that they've been.
Supervisor Long.
Well, just this is one of those that you look at as an investment today that will it bring us the rewards years ahead. It's the tough part of a small business is that if you going through hard times, you cut your advertising budget, then in fact are you cutting what would be a benefit of making sure that you're reaching the clients you need. And this is, I think, part of the whole value of the Boating Instruction and Safety Center package, in addition with the tolling more, that I just think it has such great opportunity. And I hear your comments, Supervisor Parks, and I guess my question was the Channel Islands Harbor Foundation, Inc., a partnership that we've already committed to in the sense of agreeing to move ahead with trying to bring this project to our county, and knowing full well that while knowing that it has a great potential for both the reimbursement side of these funds, but also for the tourism benefit and the educational benefit. So it is a tough one during these times. I don't know what other questions to ask that might address that, but.
Fundamental question. I mean, you believe the $60,000 investment, if it's not paid back, from the fundraiser, that the $60,000 that we will generate that revenue in terms of increased foot traffic and in terms of revenues back to the harbor department.
Well, there was already a feasibility study done on the fundraising that was funded by School of the Pacific Islands, and then the subsequent meetings with Netzel Group and other fundraisers as we've talked to them. We've talked to the Ventura County, the Community Foundation, and others believe that the $1.8 or $2 million overall, including the fundraising cost that needs to be raised, is not going to be a difficult proposition to raise, which means that the money would be reimbursed. I'm just being upfront with you that if it wouldn't be successful, this money is placed at risk. If it is successful, of course, it's reimbursed over the next year and is not, going to be at issue.
So the experts that you've worked with feel confident that the fundraising will be successful, and so there will be no expenditure of the $60,000.
That's correct, because it's only a $2 million campaign, which is relatively small in the overall scheme of things, especially for youth-oriented programs.
Supervisor Long.
Well, also working with Netzel on two other capital campaigns, both one for Food Share and the other for the YMCA, they certainly have a model that has been proven to be very successful. I guess if I'm putting faith in a project like this, they are the best in the industry to run such a campaign. I'll say that much.
They're also expensive.
Do you
Yes,
know
they are.
Supervisor Parks.
how much money has Mr. Jans already invested in the Tullamore? Does he own like half of it? And I imagine it's a very expensive.
Oh, of the overall? Yes. There's several $1 million that are already in ownership.
So I think the $60,000 he wants isn't going to have Mr. Jans lose the Tullamore. It's not like this is going to keep it. He just wants us to invest in this tall ship also.
It would continue operating in Long Beach.
That he owns. We don't get a percentage of the ship or anything. We're paying for his ship.
Well, no, it would continue to operate in Long Beach. There wouldn't be any problem with it continuing where it is today.
The money, though, is to pay for his ship, pay for the Tullamore. I mean, at least that's what the staff report says. Mr. Jans needs Mr. Jans has advised he needs to have the funds in hand to pay the loan on the Tullamore. So it's not like we're getting a percentage of the Tullamore. We're paying for his ship.
We're paying So that he can raise the money to bring it to Ventura County.
Well, the way it
Yeah.
reads here is to pay the loan on his,
That's what the money would be
Tullamore.
raised for, and that's what enables him to bring it up to Ventura
of
County.
which he already owned, he has already paid a couple million for, you're indicating.
It's not him personally. There's
Well,
there's a different owner. It's a
Well,
corporate owner.
As I understand, they're partners in owning a ship. So this is
That's
helping
my
to pay
understanding.
his loan for his portion of the ship that he owns.
That a nonprofit foundation owns. Yes, he has a great personal interest in it because his family's been involved for many years in this ship.
And it's a
but-
great program, and
Right.
it's wonderful. I'm just pointing out that this is money going to purchase something that, like a ship that he and his partners own through their corporation, of which we don't own the 60,000 portion of it. It's
No.
just so that he'll move it here.
That's
But
correct.
the money is going for the fundraising campaign.
Yeah, as I'm reading it, the money is going to, has advised that he needs to have the funds in hand to pay the loan on the Tullamore. I think that's what I'm reading.
Are you expecting Mr. Jans?
Yes, he was supposed to be here by 9. He just arrived back in the country last night. He's been out of the country. So he came in late last night and called and said, should I still be there in the morning? And I said, yes, you should.
I'd like to
If you
ask
defer.
a question of him and
Hold this
see
until
where it
he
stands,
gets
if we
here.
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, I have $60,000 to be seed money for funding, for this funding of this
Fundraising effort.
Yeah. So Supervisor Brooks, should you, where are you reading?
I'm reading under discussion, second paragraph, second sentence.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So like, yeah, it'd be
Okay.
good to square those two sentences, right?
Right.
If
Yeah.
we could. All righty. We will hold this item until we see Mr.
Jans.
Jan's arrival. And we now go to item 21. Thank you for being here, Sergio. Supervisor Parks, you asked to have this.
Good morning.
Hi. My request actually, these items, and we just approved several of them in the consent calendar, as I understand it, are emergency items that don't go through CEQA review, don't go through public input and all. And this item on Pole Creek, I know because we've had lots of people come and talk about the issues of Pole Creek. It's something that is kind of controversial in that community. And my thought is not that I disagree with the expenditure. I don't even really understand what the project is. I don't have any plans or anything or where it's specifically located and what it's oriented and all that. But my request would be to allow the input of citizens on this. And if I'm correct, it doesn't go through CEQA. So to me, that is just a courtesy. And if we could delay this 1 week just so people can know what the project is and have some input on it if they desirous of it. So that's all that I'm requesting, is that we wait a week so that we allow people to know about it. Is that a problem?
No, I don't think it should be a problem. We have not yet received the agreement from the Natural Resource Conservation Service on the Pole Creek project. We do have 3 other ones that have been approved today through the consent agenda. So I believe a week should be fair enough.
Okay.
All right, but if there isn't a problem, may I request a week continuance?
Request a week.
Well, I will agree with that, but I need to comment. This is in my district, and there are a couple of citizens who have disagreed with both the city and the agency, our district, on work in this area on Pole Creek. And I know that I have requested and in fact conducted numerous meetings to address those concerns. And I think that this is a watershed area that needs to be clearly improved upon, and anytime that we can get assistance from other agencies to help fund and or move that project ahead, I think it's imperative that we lend strong support for it, because the overall benefit to the entire community goes well beyond just one district's comments or concerns of, that's fine. I think that we have a process in place that public information is available once it's filed online, electronically, and it's been available to the City of Fillmore, which makes it available to the public, and it's the way that they put the information on their agenda and/or out to the community. But if there is not a delay and we're not at risk of any funding by delaying it 1 week, then fine. Delay it
Okay.
1 week.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I didn't realize that until last night, actually, what this was.
Okay.
And just asking some people, no one knew about it. So it's just, to me, it's a kind of a courtesy that this isn't something that we're like sneaking through. And I realize it is a great resource of funds that otherwise would have to come from other places because it is needed improvements. I don't dispute that at all. It's just I want to keep the process open, and I don't want to have that concern out there.
Okay,
So I'll move for a 1 week continuance.
motion and a second.
Second.
So moved and seconded to delay item 21 for 1 week. Hearing no objection, the motion carries. That handles our 2 consent items. Thank you for being here. Will somebody just, if you see Mr. Jan show up, will you please alert us? I have a little bit of concern looking at our thing. I see Ms. Gridrow here to accept the Women's History Month presentation. That's not going to be until 10:30 on our schedule here on our agenda, and I don't know. I hate to have it wait that long.
It's fascinating, also.
Well, we're going to end up being in closed session, I think, for most of this. My question is, do you have other people that are coming? And okay, all right. Then we will. Then we will hold that. Yeah, watching us in closed session, which is where we're going to be very quickly here, won't be that fascinating, I'm sure. So that we have a very light agenda today because we have a limited number of board members here, but the finest board members of all, I'm sure. That's right. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so we need to turn to public comment. Do we have any cards? Thank you. Here come your compatriots there, but I think, Mr. C, you would say we have to wait till 10:30. Is that correct? Yeah. We don't have any choice, so we have to wait. Lee, acquaintance.
Yes, good morning. I'm Lee Quaintance for the Beacon Foundation, and I want to talk a little bit about the status of the BISC project vis-a-vis the Coastal Commission and other considerations. As everyone is aware, almost exactly a month ago, the Coastal Commission voted 6-4 that the proposed location of the BISC was not consistent with the Public Works Plan. Since at that meeting, or at your meeting on the 24th of February, we suggested that you needed to do a review of the status of this project overall, and particularly the contract you have entered for 2 environmental impact reports, one for the BISC project and one for an overall PWP amendment for the harbor. We noted that at that time, $290,191 had been expended under that contract. As of yesterday, the sum expended is $325,197. The contract called for these 2 EIRs. The draft of the one concerning the overall harbor amendments was to be released in March of last year. It is a year overdue. The project for the BISC itself and its EIR and its clearance with the Coastal Commission is a subject on which 2 members of this board have on separate occasions asked to have consideration by this board, but none has been scheduled. It seems that there's an open checkbook to continue spending on whatever path the consultant and the Harbor Department is now about, and we urge this board to look at this matter and set a direction. I think you need to consider the overall status of the BISC and of this contract, and I would note, since it is on the agenda this morning, that added uncertainty comes with the proposal regarding the Tully Moor. in the staff report on page 2, it says, it is contemplated the same fundraising contract could be extended for purposes of the Boating Instruction and Safety Center should that project move ahead. I think you need to know what the plans are of the agency that has so far expended, just on this one consultant alone, over $325,000. I also would note that overall funding of the BISC has always been an issue. And in previous discussions with the board, the Harbor Department has said that the foundation would be the source of raising the $2 million, that is the state's share of the cost, or the county share of the cost, and no state construction money will be granted until that $2 million is raised and delivered to the state. What is unclear from the proposal before you is how are these projects stacked? Does the Tollymore come first, or does the BISC come first? Are we going to raise $2 million or $4 million? What is the cost? What is the plan? That is not disclosed in what you have before you. In addition, I would point out to you on page 2 something that I at least would be curious about, and that is, it says that the foundation share of the amounts already expended is $36,000. Well, is this $60,000 already partially gone? There are lots of things that are unclear here. I would suggest to you that this is not the time to be approving something like this without knowing how all these projects stack together and getting to the root of the issue of what is the plan for the BISC, how is the county going to spend its money on this project, what is its future, what do you intend, and what direction are you going to give to it. Lastly, there's reference to an MOU with the foundation that owns the vessel. Has that ever been discussed before this board? Has it ever been discussed with the Harbor Commission? I asked that question in ignorance. Perhaps it has been, but I personally am not aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Quaintance. We have no other speaker cards, is that correct? We're now ready for board comments. Do we have board comments? We'll start with Supervisor Long this time. I think we started with Supervisor Parks last week.
I think 2 times in a row. Just to let the board know, I'll be going out of county today to Sacramento for the CSAC conference and returning Thursday night. And I'll bring back piles of money, I'm sure. Hopefully at least some information that I would hope would be of value to us as we look ahead and move through our difficult budget decisions in front of us. But to let you know, I'll be up there. And also ask the board to adjourn in memory of Paul Skiba, resident of my district. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Parks.
Yes, I would like to compliment our county website, ventura.org. There's a couple of things in there, if you search a lot, you find. And one of them is we have very up-to-date weather information. Very, very detailed weather information that you can get on it. And also we have on that web page CHP reports of up-to-date traffic accidents on our local freeways and major roadways. And I was thinking that it would be nice to have that right on the home page. So this is something as residents look into what's on our web page, they'll see these wonderful resources available. So I would encourage that we put the CHP report on traffic and weather, and the weather report that we have, up-to-date weather report, on the home page, so people can click onto that easily instead of finding them buried under Watershed Protection District and elsewhere. So that is an encouragement, and keep up the good work. Also, I want to mention that our local CHP here, Captain Lunn, is moving on to San Luis Obispo County, and I just appreciated what he has given to our county in terms of just really excellent service and very accessible to residents, and I've been so impressed. He also volunteered his time to be on our Drug and Alcohol Advisory Committee, so I really do appreciate his volunteer work for the county, as well as just exceptional service to residents and businesses as a CHP captain here. And he will be sorely missed, but I know there's great people to follow in his wake. And then also I would just like the board to close in honor of the people on my list. And there's one individual that I would like to note, and that is Francis D. and she was the late wife of Joel McCrae. And Joel and Frances Dee were married in 1933, and then proceeded to move on to the Joel McCrae Ranch. It's a 2,600-acre ranch in the northernmost part of Thousand Oaks. And over the years, the couple were most generous in our community. They provided in the mid-1960s the land for the YMCA up on the Norwegian Grade. And in 1977, they donated 75 acres along the Norwegian Grade to the Caneo Rec and Park District, and that McCrae Ranch is now in the development stage to become a park available to everybody. They also have dedicated a lot to our community, as well as a charitable trust to the CRPD. Frances Dee was in some wonderful movies herself, was a great actress, and a real asset, that whole family, to our community. And I would just like to close in honor of her. Some of the movies she was in: Little Women with Katharine Hepburn, Of Human Bondage, Souls at Sea with Gary Cooper. I Walked with a Zombie was a classic cult thriller that she was in, and very much enjoyed her, and she was a wonderful, beautiful lady to the end.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm really...
I'm sorry, if I just might add, thank you for doing that. She really was, and her entire family, and I'm most appreciative at the close of the article on her that the family, again, is supportive of the Camarillo Boys and Girls Club and have offered contributions there. So thank you for doing that.
I am really glad the press is here, because it's an item I want to call out to the public's attention and hope they may be able to assist. Well, we approved item 9 about the county senior nutrition program, but I want to make sure that everybody here in the building that's be listening to the meeting, as to much that we can make people aware that the county senior nutrition program has a waiting list of seniors who are stuck at home, homebound, who can't get their meals delivered to them because we have a shortage of drivers. We have sufficient funds to pay for the meals. We just can't get the meals to those people, and I am positive there are dozens of people in this county that would be delighted to deliver these meals. They just don't know about this shortage. So daily, over 386 meals are served at the congregate centers. That's where the seniors come to the center. And 476 meals are home delivered, for a total of 863 meals every day in this county. There are enough resources to provide the meals. There's a waiting list, though, and we have 476 meals being home delivered, but we have a waiting list of people at home who are trying to get on this home delivered process. I know for a while that my wife's grandfather had these meals delivered, and it was a wonderful thing for him to have somebody show up at his house in the middle of the day, and it is a way for people to check on these people and everything else. So anyway, I want to get that out there. To volunteer, the contact person is Tom Wadsworth at 388-4317. So anyway, I wanted to call everybody's attention to that as much as possible. I wanted to both compliment Supervisor Parks on the comments about the McGrays. I thought that's well said for somebody that's been that community oriented, and compliment Supervisor Long for attending CSAC on our behalf. It is a labor to show up in Sacramento and with all the things going on. Quite frankly, I intended to fly up. I had reservations to fly up tomorrow morning. I was going to go for the day and come back last night, but I'm not going to fight that battle now, one-armed, at this point in time. So, but we do benefit as a board by having close contacts with CSAC and getting that information. And I know there are some boards where nobody's doing that, and they suffer as a result. So this county is in better shape, so thank you very much for doing that. And I'd like to ask what's that?
The governor's our keynote speaker tomorrow morning, so I'll
All right, good. And then I'd like to ask us to adjourn in memory of the people on this list. And if I could point out for the women that are here that this is a 10:30 item. I just checked with County Council, and he said we cannot take it earlier. So
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The item is not one which requires public input of any particular kind. I believe it is the kind of thing that the board could take at an earlier time as a ceremonial matter if the board so chose. There is no action being taken to be challenged, so I think you can take it when you like.
Great. Do you have other people that you anticipate to be attending? Then as a courtesy, if you're comfortable, we'll take this item early, right? Okay. Let's turn to this item right now. It is scheduled as our 10:30 item. It is item number 26, presentation of resolution proclaiming March 2004 as Women's History Month. And we have Diane Goodrow here. I'd like to just very quickly read this resolution and then ask you to introduce the other people that are with you and make whatever appropriate comments. Whereas this is a resolution declaring 2004 as Women's History Month, women inspiring hope and possibility. Whereas American women of every culture, economic status, and ethnic background have participated in the founding and building of our nation and have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our country, and American women have played a critical role in shaping the economic, cultural, and social fabric of our society, and American women celebrate the hope and sense of possibility that comes to their lives from the inspirational work of women. Hope comes in many forms, from laws challenged and changed, new medical research, stories of compassion and courage, and watching women stand tall against great odds. American women have been leaders in every movement for social change, including their own struggle for suffrage, the fight for emancipation, the struggle to organize labor unions and win other civil rights for women. And Ventura County women are following in the footsteps of our foremothers by working with the Ventura County Commission for Women, the League of Women Voters, the Coalition to End Domestic Violence, the National Women's Political Caucus, the Women's Economic Justice Project, the Reproductive Rights Network, and other organizations to retain their rights and resolve the issues that women still face. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors urges our schools, colleges, libraries, and other civic organizations to honor the role that American women have played and continue to play in our history by proclaiming March 2004 as Women's History Month in Ventura County, and the Board of Supervisors of Ventura County urges Ventura County citizens to join other women and men around the world in celebrating March 8th as International Women's Day.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you all for the Board of Supervisors. I really appreciate what you've done. And the commissioners with me today, Commissioner Cecilia Fargo and Hazel Miller, also thank you. And the commissioners who are at work this morning and can't be here, also thank you. And I appreciate that very much. I just want to very quickly tell you that on Saturday at UC Santa Barbara, a group of low-income women had a wonderful day at the university, sponsored by the Women's Economic Justice Project with the help of our commission and the commission from Santa Barbara, and it was an inspiring day. And I just wanted to let you know that the work continues, so appreciate very much what you've done. Thank you. And I want to wish you a speedy recovery.
Sure.
That would,
Since we are the women.
One, two, three. Terrific.
I think I need to take one more. One more. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for changing your schedule.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your work on the commission. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Diane, if I could just say something quickly on the commission's work, I'm very proud that you've all been able to continue working with, frankly, very little financial support from the county, but support from all offices and board members, I know. And having served on the commission, I know that you stay focused and you put projects in front of you and you just get them done. So it's really appreciated. And speaking, if I might, as an elected woman office holder, I found it very interesting that they knew the reorganization of Iraq. They're going to have 25% requirement in the the parliament organization that 25% of the office holders must be women. So here we should have that here, mandated, mandated. So we thank you for your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You're an excellent model.
Well, and I would point out that they were hoping to get 40% mandated, but they got 25%, but that didn't get mandated. At the last minute, it got suggested. So isn't that sad? Yeah.
Woman dated, not mandated.
Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah, but it was.
They have planted the seed, so
That's
watch
right.
out.
They certainly have. Okay, we can go back to item 13 since Mr. Jans has arrived. So I believe we have some questions we'd like. So if both of you could please approach the platform and let's start the questioning.
Okay.
All right. I think we have some questions about what the $60,000 is going to be used for, and then the whole issue of the fundraising part of that. But why don't the two supervisors that ask questions ask them more specific? You want to go ahead?
If I might make just a 7-sentence statement. I really appreciate holding the meeting for me. I've traveled all the way from central Mexico, got in last night at 2 a.m. and got up before breakfast. That's unusual for me. I really appreciate the opportunity to...
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to
okay.
show up.
The fundraising in question, and I also don't know what went before, so I'll just start. The fundraising in question is for the acquisition of the SSV Tullamore, as you know. This ship, and for the ultimate raising of the balance of the funds needed to build the BISC at the appropriate moment in time. The funds are for fundraising. The funds that will be raised will be used to acquire the ship, and if our plan goes as anticipated and as hoped for, the funds raised will include funds to reimburse the foundations, both foundations that are now sponsoring the fundraising. I don't know if that was clear, but I guess that's all I need to say right now, and I'd welcome any questions.
I think my question has been answered just in terms of where the funds are going to be applied, and they will help to fund the Tullamore, which will then generate fundraising funds to help the BISC and other programs.
Well, the funds that are in question here will be channeled to the foundation, the Channel Islands Harbor Foundation, which is in partnership with the School of the Pacific Islands Foundation, both nonprofits. Those funds will be used to pay for the actual fundraising. The actual fundraising of ultimately in excess of $6.5 million requires office staff, consultants, etc. The funds requested here will not, in fact, if you've followed dollar for dollar through the labyrinth, will not, in fact, go to purchase the Tullamore or to build the BISC, but rather to raise the funds which will purchase the Tullamore, build the BISC, and reimburse the two foundations their seed money.
There's in the report that we have before us,
yes,
it indicates that Mr. Jans of the School of the Pacific Islands has advised that he needs to have the funds in hand to pay the loan on the Tullamore by September 2004. So, is that accurate?
Yes and no. That's a perfect, lawyer's answer.
I just want to say, though, my concern on this is just because we're in a very difficult budget time right now,
yes.
and that's the same amount of money that could, pay for a staff person that we're going to be letting go in about 6 weeks. So it's just that's the problem I'm having is we're just in difficult financial times to do something like this. I just have a fundamental problem with that. But I do want to say what a wonderful program that you do have.
Thank you.
You've provided a VCR tape of the Tully Moore. My boys really enjoyed it, and it's a very exciting thing that you're doing, and I wish you all the best.
Well, you can participate in all the best. The question is then, okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Okay, then I'll answer that. I understand that these are difficult times. The foundation over which I preside, which I do not own, is also having difficult times. The market's down. My foundation, which has a very small endowment in the beginning, and I say my foundation, I don't want y'all understand nonprofits, and I do not own this foundation. I answer to a small board of trustees, as does the Channel Islands Harbor Foundation. But I will, for ease of conversation, I will call it my foundation. My foundation is expending over 100% of its net income this year on this effort. So we are actually going into capital to fund this project, this fundraising project. At the time that that we prevail and succeed, which is also we need every tool we can get because of these hard times, then the ship will be acquired. The ownership will be shifted to a new foundation. Let's call it the Ventura County Tall Ship Association. The money will transfer to the current owners, and the current owners will pay off the existing debt. Parenthetically, the ship's last 2 years of operation out of Long Beach has paid for virtually every expense that it incurs through its own tuition, with the exception of the amount of money it has to pay the bank, if you will, on interest and principal. So when the funds transfer from our fundraising organization to this nonprofit, and the ship and they will of course have to pay off the debt, then the ship will ownership will transfer to the new nonprofit debt-free. History indicates that if we enjoy the success of operations with the ship here in Ventura County, which inures to the benefit of our children, the ship will operate on a daily operational basis in the black. That's extraordinary in the world of nonprofits and in the world of tall ship at sea training. There will be continued fundraising for operational support for long-term depreciation. You know, eventually we'll need a new set of sails. Eventually we'll need a new engine. But more importantly, for scholarship subsidy so that we don't have to require a 100% tuition. We'd like to get some challenged children aboard.
So is that what you meant when you said yes and no? Could you be specific on the yes and no answer you gave to, is this money going to $60,000 to pay for the loan on the boat, or is it going for... The $60,000 in question here is going to pay for the fundraising efforts in order to raise in the case of the Tully Moore, the $2.5 million that will acquire the ship. The funds will go to raise the funds, which will acquire the ship, which then the ship will be shipped up here debt-free. So yes, in one sense, the $60,000 is going to the Tully Moore, but only because in the sense that it's going to assist in raising the larger funds. And I also want to continue to emphasize about 5 or 6 more times that if we prevail and if we are successful in our fundraising efforts, these monies will be reimbursed. That's particularly important to the county, but also to my own foundation, which has expended in excess of $40,000 this year so far. Okay. So this statement, if I could, to Ms. Krieger, who wrote this report, funds in hand to pay the loan on the Tully Moore by September 2004. That's so that we can raise the funds to pay the loan.
That's correct.
Right. The $60,000 is going to raise the funds to pay the loan on the Tully Moore, not to pay the loan.
That's correct. That's an inartful sentence. And also the September date, which you've always been very clear about. Larry Jans has been working diligently to see if he can get an extension on that date. It involves cooperation from the bank and a number of other parties, but we know we're getting tight on time.
Great, thank you.
And the $60,000 doesn't go directly to, it goes to raise the funds, not just to pay off the debt, to acquire the ship, which in turn, de facto, the debt will be paid off.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Board members? All right.
Move the recommended action.
Are we done here? Yes.
You're finished. I'll second it. All right. Opposed or? All right. One objection, and the motion carries 2-1. I would like to point one thing out in terms of why I seconded it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You need 3 votes to take any action. A majority of the members present will not carry.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Boy, that's not how it used to be in student government. We got a lot of business done. Okay. All right. So that action does not carry at this point in time. And so I'd like to...
I was just going to suggest, if you would like to hold this off till you have a full board,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have an objection to that.
Okay, great. I'd like to... so that motion doesn't carry. We need another motion. Yes, sir.
As it turns out, both of us are out of town next Tuesday.
And we're dark in 2 weeks, so it's in 3 weeks. So the first meeting in April. All right? Does that work for you, Mr. Jans?
Move to continue it to the first meeting in April.
Move to continue to April 6th?
And I'll second that. I don't want to take advantage of the fact that of the constituency that we have right now on the board.
Okay.
So we'll see
Thank
what the
you.
full board says.
I appreciate that. I'll just make these comments as we're on this topic at this point in time. But Mr. Quaintance sort of, raised some issues about, so what's the game plan, where do we go, et cetera. And I would offer, my perspective is, I said it at the time with the BISC when people said, hey, we ought to put the BISC over here on the other side because we'll build all of these other fantastic things. And I said, as slow as we move in terms of getting anything done, we're going to be lucky if we get the BISC built, much less build all of these other things. So I would offer that somewhere before my arrival at this board said we want to have a BISC and we want to have the tall ship program. Those seem like common sense things, the BISC and the tall ship program. They seem like real beneficial things for the citizens of our community. That's the game plan. And if that's the game plan, and the game plan is that it's going to require a lot of fundraising, $2 million for the ship, $2 million for that, and we have citizens, not our staff, not us, but citizens out there in the community who say, hey, trust us, we can raise the money, and the game plan has been laid out, then in my mind, probably the most valuable thing we can do is to show some steadiness in our very snail-like pace towards achieving those 2 goals, which is getting the BISC and getting the tall ships. And with that, I think it would start to deflect our messages, and we'd be even more erratic and if you're going to be snail-like in your pace and erratic and zigzag across the pavement, it takes you a long time to get across the pavement. So that's my theory and my logic on it at this point in time. $60,000 is a very good investment if it leverages $4 million of investment, particularly if we have a very good chance of getting the $60,000 back, which we will if we are successful in getting the $4 million. So that's my logic. I completely respect that it's not an easy decision, and I completely respect that, this may not, that people could come to a different conclusion with that. That's just sort of my thinking on this one at this point in time. So we'll discuss it more on April 6th, and with that, that item carries 3-0. Mr. County Council, I'll note, all right, to carry this over to April 6th. We have, I think it'd be nice for these agencies if we can get these done. The Human Service Agency, item 28, so they don't have to wait past the time certain items. Mr. Zimmerman.
Good morning. Really quickly, this is an agreement that's before you to solidify agreement between us and the First Five Commission in order to pay for a staff that is staffing the Community Commission Foundation. And this has been an agreement that we entered into a while back, and this is just the formality to get the instruments in place to have the transference of funds occur.
Great. Do we have, we've been working on these legal contracts up. Do we have any questions for staff? Do we have a motion?
Move the recommended action.
Moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Obviously, I'm the only objection, so I should know that. Item 29, CEO, adoption of resolution establishing many
Was that
classifications.
I'm sorry.
Are you saying it's a 2-1 vote?
No,
Oh.
I said hearing no objections.
Oh,
I said, since I shouldn't say hearing no objections, I'm the only person. I mean, if you moved it, you seconded, I can just say the motion carries. Pardon my rambling, it's the pain
got it.
pills, right? Okay. Item 29.
Chair Bennett, members of the board, and Mr. Johnston, I'm Barbara Journay with Human Resources. The item before you today requests that some positions be established for LAFCO, as well as revising the title for the LAFCO Executive Officer, that we make an amendment to the salary of the Director of the Area Agency on Aging, and correct through adjustments her time bank and flexible credit amounts that she did not receive. And lastly, that we have the reading of an ordinance to place 4 APCD management positions in the unclassified service. I'm available to answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll take a motion.
I'll go ahead and move the item, and I think why there's no questions is because we're intimately involved on those other boards and have had those staff reports.
Second.
Moved and seconded. There is no objection. The motion carries 3-0. Item 30.
Title of the ordinance, Mr. Chair.
Please.
An amendment to the Ventura County Ordinance Code, Division 1, Chapter 3, Article 4, Civil Service System.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Item 30, motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. There is no objection. We are now down to only time certain items, and we have 2 minutes before we get to 9:30. Why don't we let supervisors take a 2-minute break? We'll start exactly at 9:30, though. Right? So, do you need the restroom? Time for our upbeat, optimistic weather report from the CEO.
Well, good morning, everyone. This past week, actually past 2 weeks, I have met with, I believe, almost every department in the county, and we've done what we refer to as the rollout or the beginning of the budget process by identifying what is truly awful. One department head said, "You're doing it differently this year." And I said, "How so?" And he said, "Well, you're using worst case scenario." And I said, "Well, I got some more bad news for you. This isn't the worst case scenario. This is the most realistic scenario we can come up with based on the information we have as of today, primarily coming from the state of California." So you read in the paper some of the things that are the consequence. I mean, when your county clerk, who is extraordinarily capable and very supportive of management, says, "Well, which part of the election don't you want me to hold?" Because the amount of money that is being asked to be cut from the budget will not allow for full funding of the election. Obviously, that's not the way it will come out. But it is important at this stage in the process that all departments identify just how tough it is on their department to do their, quote, fair share, so that the public, your board, and my office can start to figure out what are we going to do. One of the, public safety is one of the highest priorities, if not the highest priority of government. But in a democracy, I suggest that free elections probably are right up there with it. And so we're going to those are the kinds of really difficult choices that we've been wrestling with. So far, all the departments have indicated they will go ahead and go through the exercise. I think many of them say, well, we've done this before and it never turns out this way. I am truly hopeful that it won't turn out this way, but we have no alternative but to start preparing. This Friday, we have requested all departments to identify to the best of their ability what the number of positions, job opportunities that will be deleted, how many of those positions may be occupied, which gives us an idea of what layoffs might be in our future, and to the degree that they can at this stage, identify in general terms what the programmatic impacts are, such as if you don't give us, $800,000 or whatever the number is, $900,000, then and only give us half that, then you get a half an election, because $900,000 is roughly what it costs us to put on the election. So those kinds of things are in the mill. Within the next couple of weeks, you'll be hearing more about that. We have a freeze on right now. We have allowed each agency and department head to self-exempt on the basis of emergency. By the end of the month, I think the only exemption will probably be nurses at the hospital, who by law there has to be a ratio to treat patients, and they can't take the time for the bureaucratic red tape of going through a review process. But I suspect all other positions will need to put through that bureaucratic red tape, and hopefully we'll hire nobody. That doesn't solve the budget problem, but it may slow things down and help us alleviate the layoff situation. That's the best we can hope for on that front. I leave this afternoon along with Supervisor Long. We need to laugh where we can, folks. We're headed for Sacramento, and tomorrow we will be hearing from the legislative analyst, Ms. Hill. We'll be hearing from the governor and from the director of finance, or I think there'll be a half a dozen of them up here, all kind of key players. The one I'm putting my money on right now is the legislative analyst, not because I think she will win, but I sure like her report better than the other ones, because she's pointed out the disparate impact or disproportionate impact that the governor's proposal is having on county government. And one of the problems is most people don't know what county government does, including the state of California, it seems. So we have to go up there and tell our story and hope that we can somehow shape the agenda. About 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we talked about an opinion poll of the community on the sales tax for open space transportation, which I saw in the paper this morning. We got a rise out of the city of Thousand Oaks. I said at that time, and didn't get a lot of wild enthusiasm either from the audience or from the board up here, but in these troubled times, the idea of the half-cent sales tax for general purpose in order to preserve as much public safety and general government as we can, I don't think the voters are necessarily going to be thrilled with the idea, but I think it's a subject we have to start considering. And I am hearing up and down the state from the other counties that this is becoming a more current topic. None of them want to talk about it, but when they look at the alternatives, they sort of feel like it's, as one person said, I don't think there's any chance in this conservative rural county, and I can't remember which county it was, that such a thing could pass. But our board generally feels that we at least have to ask the voters to give them a choice before we make these draconian cuts. So that's out there in the wind. Also, we have the constitutional amendment to protect local revenues, and I'll be studying that more carefully. It looks to us as though it's not going to undo damage that is currently being proposed or has been done. So it's sort of, like the cow's out of the barn, and then we close the door. That may still be something that is worth doing, but it's basically the tax structure, I think, as the Chairman Bennett has said, in California, it's basically broken, and I don't know whether it'll be patched together to fix it or whether they'll really actually reform it. But right now, our job is to react to what the laws of the state of California require, and that is what we are doing. And by the end of the month, we'll have a clearer picture as to what it means to Ventura County. I'll take any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Do we have any speaker cards? We have no speaker cards, no questions?
No one wants to talk about this, including me.
If I might comment, I would just say that, it is going to be very difficult to have to face, losing employees. And that's going to be a very, very tough for the board, very tough for the individuals, obviously, and the departments who will be losing them. And in that, I would just look at asking the county management to look at creative options where possible, what programs can be combined with other departments. We do have so many separate departments that I think we could start looking at potential coordination. For example, we have two different departments that do water monitoring in the county. One does surface water, one does groundwater, issues like that. We have our environmental resource division that may be able to assist in some code compliance issues. Right now we have basically one code compliance officer for the entire county. That's basically no code enforcement. If you look at it, if they've got 800 cases and not enough people to look at it, at enforcing our codes, it frustrates me to think, why do you have codes if you're not enforcing them? Our county provides, because of previous cuts way back, Proposition 13, the county doesn't provide any street sweeping. There's just a lot of things that we do go without. And now we're even having discussions of not having absentee ballots go out. There are some major priority decisions that we do have to look at, and I would just ask that we try to do as much coordination between departments, as well as giving the board an opportunity to look at some of the items that are being proposed for cutting basic community services, and let us have input into that. I really want to assure that. Another suggestion with at least the juvenile justice complex, it's larger than the number of juveniles that will be going into it in our county, to look at other counties that may want to contribute to staffing at the juvenile justice complex by having out-of-county people, juveniles that have to be detained, be able to use that facility. But I know there are a lot of big decisions that we're going to have to make that are going to affect a lot of people and their lives. So I just want to make sure that the Board of Supervisors has some hands-on in these essential services that are going to be cut, and also just to encourage some creative thinking out there. I think that we may be able to always put services first. What we may be able to combine some efforts between departments to assure that the services can still be provided.
Mr. Johnson?
I don't know if we could call this good news, but one of the things that is possible and more possible during difficult times is the fresh look and the restructuring. And I assure you, for 3 years, because we have had forced retrenchment in this county and held the line, that the county managers have shown creativity, but there's always more that can be done. And now interdepartmentally or interagency ideas will be looked at. And I can tell you, just in my office, we had an all-hands meeting last Wednesday where we announced that based upon all the information we have, we are looking at something in the neighborhood of 30 positions being cut, 25 of which appear will be filled, which means there's a potential of basically 1 in 4 layoffs in the office. There is no way we can continue doing things in the way they've been specialized before, and so in addition to that problem, there will be the restructuring that will occur. But the goal will be to maximize the service delivery back to the community, and we will have to change the way we do business in many instances to make that happen.
I want to compliment Supervisor Parks. I think it is really important that we stay creative and to sort of bring that up right now, early in the process. Give us those options and to keep demanding that. That's probably something we as a board will have to just keep asking those questions and trying to keep pushing the envelope in terms of creativity, because we're going to need all of it. But people get increasingly creative as the budget gets tighter and tighter, and hopefully some things that people just didn't enter into in terms of thoughts will be ones that people will consider. Anything else on this item? All right, Mr. Johnson.
Just one last little sound bite that in times like these, people frequently say we need to work smarter, we need to work harder, and we need to do more with less. The realities here are this is so severe that this will be less with less. And the reason I say that is I've got county managers out there who are killing themselves trying to make this thing work, and I don't want the message to go forth that I expect them to do the same things they've been doing in the past, just do it with 25 or 50% less resources, because all of us realize that's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that we can't maintain as much program as possible by the way in which we conduct ourselves.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Our other 9:30 item is item 24. That's the second hearing on an ordinance, adoption of an ordinance regulating parking and standing of commercial vehicles having a manufacturer's gross vehicle weight of 10,000 pounds or more in designated residential districts. Mr. Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Butch Britt from Public Works Agency. I have no presentation. This is an ordinance that your board asked to come back. This is a second reading, and if there are any questions from the board, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Britt? We have none. Do we have any speaker cards? We have no speaker cards.
Move the recommended action.
Moved and seconded. There is no opposition. This motion carries. Thank you very much. A couple of people from the community have attended here. Thank you. We are now, our next item is at 10 o'clock, and that will be our last public item, and that will be the public hearing on the CDBG plan. But that gives us 15 minutes that we could knock a few things out in closed session, I believe, Mr. C. So the esteemed board majority will move to the closed. Board of Supervisors back into session. Our apologies for being 10 minutes late, coming out of closed session. And here we go.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson.
Marty Robinson with the County Exec's Office. This is the second public hearing of the annual process to allocate HUD funding to various projects and programs. I'd like to make a few points before the public testimony. The recommendations are based on projects and programs which are identified through an annual request for proposal process, and the funding allocations and recommendations are in Attachment A, and they're in more detail in Attachment B. Under the Community Development Block Grant Program, there are 3 new projects: handicapped restroom at Oakview Park and Resource Center, contribution to the Piru wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and a sewer line installation in El Rio. Other projects listed are being given additional funding to complete their funding cycle. Public service is, again, only about half as much as the requested need within the RFP process. A new allocation that we're giving this year is to senior nutrition. That's a county-run senior nutrition program. Unfortunately, it's very small, and I believe senior nutrition's net county cost about $500,000, and we're giving them, I think about $4,000. So that's a problem I'd like to return to. Under the home program, I'd like to make note that we are recommending funding for a farm worker housing project in Piru, as well as funding of the mobile home improvement program. The farm worker housing program is contingent on some of the approvals of the neighborhood council. There's still some work to be done, but because farm worker housing has been a high board priority, we have elected to recommend it in a little more of the formative stages than we normally would an activity of this type. Under the home program, we also have a new program that we were just made aware of right before filing this board letter, and that's the American Dream Down Payment Assistance Program. We have covered a great deal of information in the board letter regarding administrative funds and taking a close look this year at our administrative funding. When we look at the overall cost of running these programs, it costs about 17% to cover general admin as well as project administration. We have included a recommendation for project implementation costs for all of the large projects in this year's allocation as a way of mitigating local costs related to this. We are also pursuing at the federal level increase in the administrative cost funding. As your board knows, there is a 20% set aside for community development block grant that you can use for administration, but home funds are only 10% and emergency shelter grant is only 5%, and the new program that they're giving us this year has 1 year of some small percentage of admin money and no admin money in the following year. We have looked at all of our program administration. As I said, it nets out to about 17% of the annual increment. The problem is some of that includes net county costs, and we are, of course, in this year, really attempting to mitigate all the net county cost issues that we confront. Another issue that I'd like to bring up is in the public service arena. A lot of the organizations that we are recommending funding today, we traditionally have funded. The problem is that there's about $80-some thousand that if we were probably farther along in this particular funding cycle, knowing what we know at the state level now, we may have made recommendations differently in the public service arena. You know that we support a lot of nonprofit organizations out there who do good things in the community, and we think they're terrific partners. We are ending up having to balance that against county-run functions that we know are going to be hit dramatically in the upcoming year. So this year we have pretty much allocated similarly to how we have in the past, sort of like the funding cycle occurred and the dynamics of the state funding has not fully come to rest. So given all of that information, we have proposed funding this year not unsimilar to what we've had in the past. I just think that we have to point out that in the future we may very well not be able to do that if our funding situation continues. With that, one more point. The recommendation number 4, I believe you received an amended document, but we are not asking you to move forward with that at this time. Okay?
All right. Do we have any questions for staff before we have 10 public speakers? No questions at this point in time. Because we have 10 public speakers, I'm going to ask that the public speakers please try to keep your comments as brief as possible. Also ask the person on deck to move up so that they're close to the microphone while the other speaker is on. And I'm also going to limit everybody to no more than 3 minutes, if you can be more efficient than that, to help us stay on schedule. We have a number of people that are leaving for Sacramento promptly after this meeting. So with that, Barbara Kennedy Beaver from Oakview School.
Good morning, Supervisors. Mr. Johnston, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you again for supporting the project at the Oakview Park and Resource Center. The ADA funding that we're asking for will be very much an asset in our community. There's many disabled children and adults there alike, so I appreciate your response to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Eldon Sandy, and on deck, Richard Park.
Good morning, Supervisors and Mr. Johnson. I'm Eldon Sandy, President of the Board of Directors of Habitat for Humanity Ventura County, here to thank you for your long-term support for habitat projects in the county, where we can consolidate the volunteer activity throughout the county and apply it to the needs of providing affordable housing wherever we can get the land. We have been working on the project, as you know, in Piru for a while, and that's coming to conclusion. We have a new one coming up, and we want to thank you for the support of helping us get started on our next one in Piru.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sandy. Mr. Richard Parks, and on deck, Pat Swagerman.
Good morning, members of the board. Richard Park. I'm from the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura. I live in Ventura. I'd like to thank you for your support for the rehab, or the continued rehab of the Palm Gardens out in Piru. It is a major rehab of 15 very, very low income apartment complexes, and over the next year you're going to see major changes out there. It's a major improvement. I really appreciate the support of the staff, the CEO's office for supporting this, as well as yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Pat Swagerman, and on deck, Jim White.
Good morning. I want to thank you for your support of the Boys and Girls Club of Piru. It's very much needed and appreciated. I promise you that the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clara Valley will try very hard to provide the important services to any of the youth that come to the club. We will continue to try and expand our services to as many youth as possible in even more meaningful ways by making an impact on their lives, by encouraging them to do their homework, encouraging them to stay in school, to go to college, and also to think about their future careers. Our staff works every day as mentors for these children to encourage them and develop their potential in every way. I know life is very difficult in these times of economic cutbacks, but I just want to encourage you not to forget Santa Clara Valley. And I'd also like to say it's very nice to see Kathy Long here, and I really appreciate all that she has done for Santa Clara Valley. She has represented the area very well in all of her work for the hospital and its struggles, for the neighborhoods for learning, providing services 0 to 5, supporting the Boys and Girls Club and the many other organizations. And as you do your work, I want you to continue to remember Santa Clara Valley, because it is the area that is the neediest in the county, and we really appreciate and need your help, especially during these times. And on this occasion, especially the Boys and Girls Club of Piru. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sagerman, for your comments. Jim White, on deck, Jim Acosta.
Good morning. How's everybody today?
Good.
My name is Jim White. I'm with Arc Ventura County, but today I'm talking a little bit about Partners in Housing. Just to put the other hat on for a second, I want to thank you again for the support you've given to Arc Ventura County in the past few years, many years. And we have a very successful program with that recently we put together with an auto detailing program, and it's actually making money. But without your support, we wouldn't have been able to do that. Now, my other hat, Partners in Housing. I want to thank you for your ongoing support for that, especially the last couple of years. This $7.3 million project is about $500,000 away from getting started. Again, without your support, we wouldn't be able to do it. Partners in Housing really is exactly that, partners in housing. We can't do anything in housing, especially, and I know Kathy knows about this, without partners. And we have partnered with the county, we have partnered with the Housing Authority up there, we've partnered with and many other organizations. And as president of the organization, I'm very excited about it. Again, thank you very much. Thanks to staff. We couldn't do this without the staff. Christy and her staff. It really is a partner, and not only with the community, but with the staff and people in the community. So thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Acosta, and on deck, Bob Sika? Help me with that one when you come up.
Good morning. I'm Jim Acosta, president of the Boys and Girls Club of Ventura. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak before them this morning. I want to thank you, first of all, for the many years of support of the Ventura Boys and Girls Club, the Saticoy unit. The Saticoy extension was opened in 1997 after a demonstrated need in the community for an organization such as this. We're currently located in the Saticoy Park using a modular building in the county park. Residents of Saticoy are predominantly Hispanic and low income. Many of the parents are limited in their ability to communicate with their children in English, and as such have a very difficult time in assisting their children in their studies and their homework. The Boys and Girls Club unit has bilingual staff that's able to help the children also communicate with the parents, help them a lot with their homework and in their after-school activities. We average about 90 to 110 children a day. In a community the size of Saticoy, you can see that the need is certainly there. We also have a total membership of over 350 youth, ages 6 through 18. The Boys and Girls Club facility in Saticoy is the only facility-based youth development program available in the area, and so we serve the community and serve the community well. The development of the youth of the county, as you are, I'm sure, aware, is a very important need for our social structure. This is the time when you want to provide the services and the support to all the youth in order so that they can become productive citizens of our society. Our strategy is to instill a sense of competence, a sense of usefulness, and a sense of belonging, and also a sense of influence in all of the things that the young people do and those that we serve. And we also would like to make a comment that we're very proud that this year the Ventura County Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year is from the Saticoy unit. Her name is Crystal Lazo. She's a senior at Boyna High School. She's been a member of our club for over 8 years before the Saticoy unit opened. She attended the Johnson facility, and so we're very proud that she just recently was named the Ventura County Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year. Next week she'll be traveling to Garden Grove to represent the region, and hopefully be able to go on and move on to the Pacific region. So with that in mind, we just again like to thank the board for their partnership and for their continued support of a very important organization, as all organizations of this type are in the county. So thank you again. I know my time is up, and then again, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Acosta. And Bob, if you'll help me with your last name, and Richard Pearson on deck. Rick Pearson on deck.
You bet. It's Bob Musica.
Musica.
Yeah, and happy Tuesday morning to each and every one of you. I'm Bob Musica, newly elected chairman of the board at Food Share.
Congratulations.
And we had submitted 2 requests this year. One was for our capital campaign, and the other was for our senior nutrition program, which we name Brown Bags for Seniors. And I want to make sure that everyone knows how much we really do appreciate your consideration. We just met earlier this morning on our capital campaign, and we're about 2/3 of the way there. So we're pretty excited about that, and we certainly hope to be able to say we've wrapped it up this fiscal year, which for us ends June 30th also. And for our Brown Bags for Seniors program, that's probably going to be a nip and tuck situation with us throughout the rest of the year. Funds are very scarce for that, so we certainly appreciate your consideration in that request also. We've got a couple of fundraisers between now and the end of the year, and one of them is going to be at the Oldest Chandler Car Museum on April 24th. I want to make sure everyone here knows that they're invited to attend. We'd love to see everyone there with us. But again, thank you this morning for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Musica. And if I could, just it reminds me of the classic thing, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person to do it. This room is full of all of some of the finest volunteers in the county. Earlier, we pointed out how we need drivers for the senior nutrition program because we have a waiting list of seniors that are homebound. We have the funds for the food. We just don't have the drivers to get it there. And I know that there are that the people in this room by themselves could go back and spread the word through your organization, and we would find a dozen drivers in a heartbeat. So if all of you would help us with that, and you can contact my office if you don't have it, but if you want to write it down, the contact number is Tom Wadsworth, 388-4317. If anybody in this room can help us find drivers for senior nutrition, it's a classic way to help seniors, to get somebody to visit them. These are people that are homebound. You may be the only person that visits them on a daily basis. It's a great thing for them, and quite frankly, it's almost always a great thing for the person that's...
that really is a wonderful program.
So if everybody will help us out, thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
Rick Pearson, and on deck, Alan Langle.
Thank you, Supervisor Bennett. Good morning to all of you. I'm Rick Pearson. I'm Executive Director of Project Understanding, and I'm here to thank the staff for their recommendation and to encourage you to accept the staff's recommendation. A portion of the ESG funding that we have been recommended for is rent assistance money. It's vital dollars in our community. As you are well aware, rents are going up much faster than incomes, and so more and more people are placed at risk of eviction because of their inability to pay because of short-term financial problems. So that these dollars are vital. And as we have in recent years, we will be again sharing those dollars through the Commission on Human Concerns to ensure that there's complete coverage throughout the county. So again, thank you for your many years of support, and I encourage you to take the recommended action.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. Alan Langwell, and our last speaker, Marcia Bailey.
Good morning, board members. I'm Alan Langville, Deputy Director of Ventura County Library. Thank you for your past CDBG funding for our county system. Your funding provides 8 additional hours for 3 unincorporated area libraries that are eligible for the funds. So thank you for the past support and appreciate the future contributions as well.
Thank you very much. Marcia Bailey, and on deck, Wally McCall. And Wally, it's a blue card that you normally fill out if you want to speak. Right. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Bailey. I'm the founder and CEO of Women's Economic Ventures. I also would like to thank the staff for the recommendation and the board for your support of our program. We provide training, loans, and long-term technical assistance to women who want to start or expand small businesses. This is an incredible growth opportunity for the county to support. As you probably know, for the last decade, 2 out of 3 new businesses have been started by women. In Ventura County alone, there are approximately 18,000 women-owned businesses. At the same time, women-owned businesses tend to be smaller than male-owned businesses. They generate only about 25% of the revenues that male-owned businesses do. This is why we do what we do. We want to help those businesses grow, to accumulate assets that really helps pull women out of poverty. So it's a great investment for not only the families, but for Ventura County as a whole. So I thank you very much for your support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bailey. And Wally McCall, our last speaker.
Sorry for the wrong color card.
That's all right.
G'day. Wally McCall. I'm CEO of Concerned Resources and Environmental Workers. We want to thank the staff for the recommendation, as well as the opportunity to appear amongst the members of the safety net for the county. I'm pleased to report that last year the crew enjoyed a banner year in doing what it does, which is the simple provision of paid employment to low-income, disadvantaged and at-risk youth, doing environmental and fire protection services. Last year we provided paid employment to 149 predominantly disadvantaged youth and 23 supervisors, and we paid them for 16,000 hours of paid employment, which is a record for us. That was done using one full-time employee, myself, and 2 part-timers, so you know the money is going to kids. And it was also done despite the fact of absolute ravagement by the workers' compensation problem, and I would please ask the board to help us in that area. We paid more than $47,000 in workers' comp last year because we're labor intensive, and we're projecting more than $60,000 in workers' comp this year, as well as another $15,000 in liability. Last year, 5 of our boys and girls became seasonal firefighters. 1 entered Oxnard Fire Academy. 4 of our graduates who are summer supervisors are now in 4-year colleges getting environmental science degrees, and another boy joined the Marines. We've obtained grants to build fuel breaks around in the Santa Clara Valley, and we plan on doubling the size of our Santa Clara Valley crew. With each year provides employment for about 50 kids, about 2,000 hours worth, totaling $20,000 of economic infusion of the community. As a result of a grant from BLM to provide a fuel break in the cities of Piru, Fillmore, and Santa Paula, we plan on doubling the crew. We also received a grant to clean up North Fork Matillahar, and we're planning on using those kids on that project as well. We thank the board again. As I said, we're trying to do a simple thing, which is provide paid employment, and as I understand it, we're one of the very few organizations that actually gives paid jobs to 14 to 16-year-olds who, as you know, sorely need it. Thank you very much for your assistance.
Thank you, and I hesitate to say this after each speaker, but I certainly could have, and I'm just going to say it one time for all of you here. These are some of the finest organizations in Ventura County, and I think we've always appreciated them, but I think we all know that the need is going to be even greater for these volunteer organizations to be there, as the county has fewer resources available to provide the critical safety net and the critical community building activities and all of those things that make us a civilized society. So to every one of you, if you'd please take our appreciation back to your members. We really do appreciate it. It's hard for us to show our appreciation adequately, but we certainly do feel it a great deal. So staff, if you want to come back up.
We'll answer any questions you would like, and I'd like to thank the crew that I deal with. Christy, Susan, Sheila, and I don't believe Mark is here today, but they're what makes this thing work, and I'm very proud that they work with me on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Long.
Yeah, thank you. Just also to thank the staff. Every year we go through this, and it's always tough because there's always more request and need than we have funds for. But clearly each and every one of you here today and on this list are the safety net. There's no question, and it becomes a much more challenging safety net as the county faces the issues we do with our budget. So we really call on you, just as Supervisor Bennett did this morning, perhaps even extra duty, to think how you might be able to help with drivers for the county senior nutrition program. But to note that there is board support. We've expressed it before, and I know we're working closely with Food Share on what can we do to take our senior nutrition program and make it a better program in working with Food Share. And I think those are things we need to look at also. What can we do to enhance one another's services for the folks in need? And this is Women's History Month, so it's great to have the network, the economic venture, being funded today, and to thank you for the work of women who are taking a lot of effort and courage to venture into a small business. It really does take courage to do so. So just thank you all. It's good to see you. As we see you in the community, often we don't get a chance to just thank you for what you do for us as a board to make our job easier, but more importantly what you do for all those folks you serve. And it's really a great need out there. So thank you.
And I would just echo Supervisor Long's comments, one to staff, because it is such a difficult a job to try to allocate a limited amount of resources among so many deserving entities. I noticed that this doesn't involve, like the community development block grants, doesn't involve the cities of Camarillo and of Thousand Oaks and Simi Valley. Some entities do this on their own. We do it as an area for all the other cities in the county, as well as the unincorporated counties that don't do it on their own. And these aren't county funds, so that makes it a little easier for us too. It's coming from the federal government for the most part. But I do want to really say how much it is appreciated that you are out there and working for the underprivileged, and it is so needed. And in these times, it is so much more needed too. So I just really take this opportunity to say thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. I think we're ready for a motion.
Move the recommended actions 1, 2, and 3.
And I'll second that.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. There's certainly no objection up here at the board level, so thank you all very much. Hope you have a good day, and we all have a
Thank you.
good year. Take care. Thank you, Marty, and thank you, Christy. And Susan, yes. Thank you. That ends our scheduled agenda items. We are now... We'll now go back to closed session and finish promptly, hopefully.